So we're gonna go myself, citizens divide that order on the meeting. But so it's a big surprise here. Now I got to remember them. We're just good to go. We live? We are live. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the FY24 Silver Spring edition of the County Executives Budget Forum. It's a pleasure to welcome you here in Littonsville. My name is Jacob Newman, and I'm the Regional Services Director for Silver Spring, which encompasses an area, actually we're in the western border, going all the way over to the Prince George's County line. Everything's south of the Beltway, plus Four Corners. And it's great to be joining you following a very, very exciting Thanksgiving parade on Saturday before Thanksgiving break later in the week. And there are a lot of people to thank for tonight who put this together. Many colleagues across our county's department present tonight, residents, and want to give a particular shout out to our Office of Management and Budget, our Technology Enterprise Business Solutions, and of course the Department of Recreation for hosting us tonight, and the Public Information Office for putting this all together. We are in Littonsville, and it's an important community here in the Silver Spring region, especially recognized in the last week for the annual Talbot Ave Bridge Walk, which commemorates the historic Talbot Ave Bridge and the connection of the communities of Littonsville, or Linden, commonly referred to, and North Woodside and other surrounding neighborhoods. But for tonight, we're here to talk about the FY24 budget as a part of the process. And it's also my great pleasure to introduce, before we have our Office of Management and Budget and County Executive up here, the chair of our Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board, Catherine Lucas McKay. I'm going to welcome her up to say a few brief remarks, and we will be on our way. Catherine?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. I am the recently ascended chair of the Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board, and I have to say, I would put us up against any one of the cabs across the county for who's the most excited about a budget forum, for real. So I'm very glad that we're here tonight. Especially that we're here in Littonsville. As Jacob mentioned, it is a very important part of the Silver Spring community, but one that often, because it is across a set of train tracks, doesn't get the level of attention that it deserves and that the community here deserves. So it's wonderful to be here and to be back at the Cofield Center, actually functioning as this community gathering space after many years of pandemic. We meet the second Monday of every month, and we have, the first Monday of every month, and we have committee meetings 2 weeks after that. I highly encourage folks to join us. We still do everything on Zoom, and we're going to be transitioning to a fully hybrid model. We would love to see more people joining us, letting us know what they see as the core needs of our Silver Spring communities, because our job is to advise the county executive, and to some extent as well, the county council, on what it is that Silver Spring truly needs out of our government services. That is kind of a perfect segue into a budget meeting, and I am very glad to introduce, from the Office of Management and Budget, Derek, whose last name I did not get. So come on up here, please, and introduce yourself more fully. Thank you so much.
Oh, there we go. Good evening. My name is Derek Harrigan, Fiscal and Policy Analyst for the Office of Management and Budget. It is an honor to participate in tonight's community conversation on the Montgomery County Fiscal 2024 Operating Budget and Services. This evening's presentation may be viewed online in 6 languages. If joining us virtually, Please follow the instructions on your screen and select the multilingual closed captions. Before the county executive provides remarks and takes questions, allow me to take just a little of your time to highlight a few key points related to the budget form itself, the operating budget, and the current fiscal climate. Additional information will be provided on how you, Montgomery County residents, can give feedback and participate in the budget development process. Purpose of the budget forum. The purpose of the budget forum is to give the Montgomery County community an opportunity to provide input on the fiscal year 2024 budget. Additionally, background information and a framework for the development of the operating budget will be given during tonight's forum. Montgomery County's 8 hybrid budget forums is one of many ways for the county's diverse community to get involved in the operating budget development process. These community conversations are also an opportunity for your voice, as well as your views on the county's operating budget and budget priorities to be heard. Your participation and engagement throughout the entire operating budget development process is very much welcomed, encouraged, and valued. Whether you're attending in person or virtually, thank you for taking the time to participate in tonight's budget forum. Both the county executive and the Citizens Advisory Board appreciate you for taking time away from your evening to join us. Understanding the budget. Montgomery County has 2 distinct and separate budgets that are related. The operating budget, which is tonight's focus, primarily covers areas such as services and programs, education, public safety, and social services. The county's capital budget's primary focus is the investment in county facilities and infrastructure. Capital projects include construction and maintenance of buildings where county programs and services are delivered, which is inclusive of schools, libraries, recreation centers, police, and fire stations. And lastly, infrastructure investments include street and road maintenance. The Montgomery County Open Budget website is an available resource to you as you seek to understand the county's operating and capital budgets. You may access the Open Budget website at www.montgomerycountymd.gov/open budget. Open Budget is accessible and interactive with customizable information that can be downloaded, printed, and shared. Note that in the operating budget section, the budget and spending of our county departments and agencies can be viewed. Previous fiscal year budgets, as well as accomplishments and initiatives, are also available to you. The capital budget section includes maps that help users visualize where capital projects are located in your communities and throughout the county. Note that details about planning areas and projects are also found in this section. Now, let's take a look at the framework that goes into building the county's operating budget. There are several key components that go into building the fiscal year 2024 operating budget. Revenue estimates give us a sense of how much is available to fund the priorities. Enrollment forecasts for Montgomery County Public Schools and Montgomery College are also considered. Due to the state maintenance of effort requirement, the county must maintain at least level funding on a per-student basis year over year. As enrollment at MCPS and the college rises, the county must accommodate additional capacity in its operating budget for this. Fixed costs include employee salaries and benefits, agreements between the county and labor unions, and current and future retiree benefits. The county reserves capacity in the operating budget for these fixed costs. Debt service and capital contributions are the county's annual loan payment for long-term capital projects for which the county borrows money. New state and federal laws or changes to existing laws may impact costs that the county has to pay or revenues that the county receives. This slide is a snapshot of the operating budget process timeline. One thing to keep in mind before we discuss the operating budget timeline is that the county's fiscal year begins on July 1st and ends on June 30th. Looking at the timeline, the operating budget process begins in the fall when departments prepare and submit their operating budgets, proposals, and requests. This is one reason why the community conversations and our operating budget forums and other avenues for community feedback on the budget are so very important and valuable. In the winter, the county executive will make decisions about budget allocations and will submit his recommended budget to the council by March 15th. In the spring, the county council will review the budget, and a part of the council's review process involves you. The council holds public hearings as well as work sessions that the community can participate in. The county will take final budget action no later than June 1st, and the fiscal year 2024 budget year will begin on July 1st, 2023. Let's outline some ways for you to participate in the operating budget development process. They are as follows. The county executive sponsored budget forums, which you're participating in this evening. These are available in person and virtually. The county executive initiated virtual town halls. Participation in any boards, commissions, and committees that are available for any areas of interest that you might have throughout county government. Residents may also write a letter or send emails. County council public hearings for which you can register to attend and give testimony. I didn't hear anybody say amen. And lastly, there are online resources available for additional information. Residents sometimes ask about other ways to get involved and or participate in budget development. One way to participate is on one of the county's 5 regional community advisory boards. This is a great way not only to be abreast of the issues and concerns of your community, you can also have a voice. Having served previously as county staff to the Bethesda Chevy Chase Western Montgomery County Citizens Advisory Board, I can tell you that these are active, engaging, and rewarding roles. What you're viewing on the screen now are the website addresses for each of the 5 regional community advisory boards. Again, we encourage you to click one of these links and get involved. Finally, let's explore the fiscal outlook of the county. The county focuses on financial sustainability. A balanced budget is required by law despite revenue volatility, and we are aggressive in meeting our reserve target policy of 10%. The county manages the rate and growth of debt expenditures, and we have well-managed retirement obligations. In addition to what you see on the screen, let's explore some additional fiscal outlook and revenue updates. Home sales have decreased 14.9% through July 2022, compared to an increase of 31.6% between January and July 2021. Because of the COVID-19 crisis, the county's unemployment rate increased from 3.1% in July 2019 to 7.8% in July 2020, but declined to 6% in July 2021. The unemployment rate declined again to 3.7% in July 2022. Note that federal-related unemployment and business assistance programs were critical in mitigating county and state revenues during the pandemic. On the screen, FY22 preliminary actual tax revenues for major taxes such as income tax and recordation and transfer taxes are up compared to March 2022 estimates. And some really good news, in September, the state of Maryland reported ending FY22 with a significant surplus. The county's FY23 tax revenue projections are on target compared to the May approved budget. Conversely, critical information is still needed to refine our revenue estimates, which will not be available until late November when the Department of Finance closes its books. The current slide is a visual representation of some of the information shared earlier in this presentation. What you see here are FY23 approved revenues, or where the county's $6.4 billion operating budget comes from. Note that property taxes, the large dark blue area of the donut, and intergovernmental revenues, the large orange area of the donut, are state funds that primarily go toward the school system, which is approximately 52%, or more than half, of the county's total revenues. This next slide is another visual representation of the county's FY23 approved expenditures by operating function. In other words, this donut represents how money is spent in the county. Note that the darker shade of blue on the donut represents Montgomery County Public Schools, which is 46% of the county's operating budget expenditures. Adding Montgomery College, which is the dark green area of the donut, or 5%, both accounting for half of operating expenditures in FY23. Early in the presentation, it was mentioned that the county is aggressive with debt management. The orange area on the donut is representative of this, accounting for 7% of operating budget expenditures. If debt service were its own county department, it would be the third largest county department. And finally, the last slide that you see here is a visualization of FY23 fixed and other commitments as a percentage of general fund revenues. Note once again that Montgomery County Public Schools and the college maintenance of effort requirement is about 52%. What remains in the budget is related to central service areas such as health and human services, police, and fire. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure participating in tonight's community conversation with you. Please help me welcome County Executive Mark Elridge, who will provide additional remarks and take questions at the end of tonight's forum. Mr. Executive.
How is everybody tonight? You good? Good. So just before I start this, I want to add, Rosemary Hills is here too. We got a little, yes. And for you know a little bit about the history of Montgomery County. First integrated community in Montgomery County, built around 1949. This is a point in time when everything was basically segregated. And if you lived in Montgomery County and you had a deed, it banned you from selling your property to Black people and to Jews. So an interesting combination. And fortunately, you may see them in your deeds, but they're no longer enforceable. But I just thought I'd bring that up because you're an important part of Montgomery County history. On the budget, we do something different. When I came in, they used to do the public forums after the budget was done. So there wasn't much opportunity for input. We're doing the budget forums now before the budget's done so that residents have a chance to have input at the beginning of the process rather than the end of the process. So when we do our budget, we apply multiple lenses to the budget and we look at it different ways. First is a racial equity lens. We're looking to see where money's spent and what do the communities look like where the money's spent. Is it equitable? Are we building parks in only one part of the county? Do only some people's rec centers get refinished? And so that's part of our analysis. Where does the money go? We use a climate lens to make sure we're doing things that are more effective in terms of reducing greenhouse gases. The county has really aggressive greenhouse gas targets. by 2027, we're supposed to have an 80% reduction in greenhouse gases, and by 2035, we're supposed to have 100% reduction in greenhouse gases. That is a very difficult road to get to, but we set targets that we knew would be hard to achieve because we didn't want to set easy targets and then say, okay, we got the job done, when in reality, zero is getting the job done. And anything less than that is not really doing everything we need to do. And we do community participation. Not only do you get an opportunity tonight, and there'll be, it's 5 more of these after tonight. There'll be 5 more of these after tonight, but you can come to meetings of your regional service center, the different, the committees that represent all different regional service areas in the county, up county, mid county, here in Silver Spring, Wheaton, so they're, and one in the East County. So there are different places to go and give your feedback on the budget. The other things we look at are applying multiple lenses to this process, and that includes, we have the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, what got created in my first year, and it's gotten staffed up. They provide training and data sources. They have a manual and a rubric for county departments, and they're teaching departments how to do this. This isn't something you can just pick up as a tool and just say, okay, now we can see it differently. You actually have to train people how to look at their information and evaluate their information using these tools, and that's what they're doing now, and training all the staff. They revamped the operating budget equity tool, and they're going to score department responses to the questions. So the departments are being graded on how they answer the questions, and if they're not satisfied with the answers, they actually go back to the department and ask for more information. And all the scores will come forward to me at the end as part of the budget making process. So we're taking this part of the budget really seriously. Next. So in the development process, these are the things we're focusing on with climate change, for example. We're environmental sustainability. Are we putting in things that we're going to regret and are going to be problems later on? We're moving toward clean and renewable energy sources. So right here in Littonsville, there's the world's largest bus grid for our ride-on bus system. We're moving our fleets to be all electric or hydrogen. So that's the direction we're going in with our fleets. We have 14 in service, but we have a lot more ordered. And approximately 220 zero-emission buses will be in operation by 2029. That's a low number. My goal is to try to go faster and push that number up sooner, and also go to a higher point. And our goal is to reach zero emissions with this fleet by 2035. We're expanding early childhood education, and this was really important to me. I didn't promise a lot when I ran last time, because I knew the county had limited resources, and I didn't want to promise to everybody that I'd give them a small candy bar and then not do anything meaningful. So I thought there were a couple things that were really meaningful, and early childhood education was meaningful. And I didn't want to trickle out lots of money to little places and not be able to do the early childhood. So we've increased the early childhood education's budget every year, and last year we were able to add another $20 million to it. And this year, with a different governor, Governor Moore's plans are to make early childhood free. And our goal is to make sure that the legislature passes what they need to pass in order to make it free. And not that I don't want to spend money, but there's so many needs in Montgomery County that we could extend to younger ages, childcare. We could put this money into affordable housing. So anything that the state or federal government pick up is an opportunity for us to shift to some of the areas that we have a harder time funding. And we need to preserve and increase access to affordable housing. And we focus on eviction and homelessness prevention. I don't know if you know this, but in the middle of the pandemic, we opened a homeless shelter for 200 people on Neville Street in Rockville. It wasn't in the budget. It wasn't part of any plan. I asked people, and you know personally here, because this rec center was used as a shelter, I asked people what was going to happen to the homeless people when we opened up the shelter, opened up the rec centers, and I was told they would go back on the street. And I made a decision on the spot that they were not going back on the street. And I asked my staff to find a building and renovate it so we could actually house people. It's another thing to deal with the problem that's on the ground. Thank you. I was not going to be the landlord that made people homeless. And so we housed 200. We've got surge capacity for 299 over there. We've housed a large portion of the homeless population, and we're looking at what we do next. But I want to go back to that again for a second. But I'm going to be putting in legislation to put limits on rent increases because the rents in this county are running completely and totally out of control. And they were going up before inflation, even when inflation was next to nothing. And they're going up extraordinarily high right now. And you're not going to have a diverse community if you don't deal with this. Employers are not going to have employees for a lot of the jobs that are here that don't pay more than $60,000. I mean, there are 50,000 households in Montgomery County today that make under $50,000. They're spending 60% of their income on housing. Nobody can make it when they're spending 60%. So a lot of needs go unmet in these families, and we want to try to put an end or pull back on the rent increases so we can make them more tied to inflation going forward. This is a bad year to tie it to inflation, but in a normal year, tying it to inflation would be a good thing. And so I'm hoping the council is willing to pass that. We've increased rental assistance. We do tenant education and tenant organizing. We just approved the first tenant co-op in over 40 or 50 years. The first time the county decided we'd actually help people buy their buildings. And my focus is on helping people buy their buildings, because if all we do is rental, even if I protect people with rent stabilization, they build no equity. They're not going to be sending a kid to school by going, dipping into their equity and funding a college education or giving your kid a down payment on their first house. So we want to be able to do more, and we want to be able to open up more opportunities for ownership. So we're working to do more programs that'll do that. And we're going to propose major changes to the county's affordable housing policy. The only thing the county really does is we have an MPDU program, moderately priced dwelling units. They serve people earning between $60,000 and about $75,000. They don't serve anybody less than that, unless we have special circumstances where we can extract a few units at a lower price. And we don't serve people who make more than $75,000 if they're single, and they can't find an apartment at the price of one-bedroom apartments in Montgomery County, particularly new one-bedroom apartments. So we're going to propose broadening the affordability, the number of people we serve. We're going to propose requiring developers to provide more than 15% of the market units as affordable. And the reason we're doing that is we had a projection for who's coming to Montgomery County, and they projected by 2030, I don't know why I keep thinking 19 tonight, 2030, that there would be 40,000 households that would come between 2020 and 2030. Of those 40,000 households, 30,000 would need subsidy. Of the 30,000, 20,000 would earn less than 50% of median income, which means they'd be totally unserved by our housing programs. So one would wonder where they're going to live. But the bigger problem is if my housing policy only gets 15% of market units as affordable, and I have 75% of people coming here needing affordable units, those two numbers don't meet each other. And so if we expect to address the growing needs in this county, we also have to be willing to change policies so our policies are able to address the growing needs here. Now you can go to the next slide. We're building a bus rapid transit system. It needs to be high quality, frequent, and reliable. We mapped out almost 100 lane miles of bus rapid transit in the county almost a decade ago. And we haven't built anything but a small little piece of it on Route 29. The county's never been able to fund it, even though it's now sitting on our master plan of highways. So we're working on ways to fund this. We got our first money from the state government in the last budget, and that's let us advance some of the designs. We're ready to go to the federal government for funding for these projects so we can bring some federal money in. And I'm looking at changing the commercial tax structure in Montgomery County to match more what Virginia does, because they're able to raise more money more efficiently without having a negative impact on the development there. And so we're looking to borrow from other people's ideas so we can finally build the transit system we need. Transit's been identified as the number one impediment to economic development. If your employees cannot get to work or your customers cannot get where you're going and they're mired in traffic, the place will not grow. And so we need to address that. So that's a high priority for me. And I'm fighting climate change, doing everything we can do. We've got a $20 million annual fund that can help commercial buildings and affordable housing make the transition from gas heat to electric heat. We've got money, we've got a co-op we're putting together for buying electric cars to try to get discounts from companies for co-op members to buy electric cars. We are going to hopefully take advantage of the federal tax credits for funding our fleet changes. We can also use it for some of the building changes we need to make. So we're aggressively looking at what the federal government has to offer us. And we're encouraging residents to do the same thing. We will never reach any of our goals if the government is the only one doing this. I mean, it's that simple. I could electrify every bus. I could switch over the heat in every building to electric. I could do all those things. But if people don't buy electric cars, if they don't put solar on their roofs, if they don't make decisions to bring in, electric appliances and they're replacing a gas appliance, we don't get to the emission targets we need. And I don't know if you're not frightened by what you see on a daily basis happening in the world in terms of climate change, you're maybe not waking up in the morning, but it's pretty scary. And if we don't do things that at least reduce our emissions, we're just going to contribute to this problem. And on the other hand, if we do things and we can show people that we can do it and we can do it in a way that we can afford it and there can be meaningful change that we can bring about, we become a model for other people to look at and say, yeah, we can do the same thing. So our goal is to do the best we can do because we should, and to be a model for other people so they have the confidence of taking some of the steps that we're making. Next, we are reimagining our public safety department. And just earlier this week, the days all fly by, we had a press conference. We introduced the ELE 4A, did a report for the county and audited the county policing. It was very thorough. It was very honest. It tells the good about the police department, and it highlights the things that need to change. No surprise to anybody, training is a big issue. And I will tell you that I've looked at incidents that I know have troubled people, and what you typically find is the officer doing what they were trained to do. And when I first started seeing these, I reached the conclusion, if you're going to change behavior, you have to change training. You can't tell people not to do something and then set them out into the field trained to do something that they shouldn't be doing. We're also stepping up mental health support. The police, our biggest mental institution in Montgomery County is the jail. A third of the people in the jail have mental health issues. And the only reason they're in jail is because this state, and all states are guilty of this, so we're not any worse than anybody else, but we've never built a mental health facility. So the judges have actually said that in a proper place, these people would be in a mental health facility. But because you don't have them, they wind up in jail. You never get better. Nobody's ever been healed in jail. That's not what the jail experience is about. And we don't have the facilities, we don't have the workers there, and it's not a good environment. And so being focused on jails has been a problem. So we are bringing in more diversion teams to involve themselves when somebody presents themselves or is presented to the police, to make an effort to use teams that have specialties in mental health to work with people who are in crisis. We're opening up a diversion center. So instead of taking people to a jail, we can bring them to a diversion center where they can sober up, they can come down for whatever it is they're on, and they don't wind up in jail and get a criminal record. As soon as you give somebody a criminal record, they become pretty much unemployable. They may be unhousable. And then their options for how they're going to make it through the world become really, really narrow, and none of us like the choices that people make. So we've got to figure out how we get people before they get into the criminal justice system and how we can help them so they don't wind up in the criminal justice system. And we're going to put a lot of effort in that. We've made steps this year. It's not nearly enough. We've got rapid response teams, but in Silver Spring, the homeless people could tie them up all by themselves before they'd ever help with a police call. So we need to make sure we're adequately staffed to deal with this issue. In general, the police, I've always told people that we're not defunding, but there's no reason why we can't do both. You have to have enough police to keep people safe. No one is going to be happy if we pull police off the street right now. On the other hand, we've got to make sure, A, they do their job in the best way possible, and that we can fund alternatives so they're not the sole response to every social problem. And that's kind of been the history of this country. We've pushed all the social problems onto the police, and then we're surprised when they don't solve them. But that institution wasn't set up to solve social problems. And we're working to advance racial equity and social justice. This is a big part of the work we're trying to do. I was just at the African American Health Program this morning, their senior program. We were talking about statistics on seniors in the African American community. They have lower incomes. They are less likely to be employed. They are more likely to be homeless. They're more likely not to own a home. And one of the most alarming statistics is that African American home ownership has barely budged in 50 years. And people who've come to this country only in the last 30 years have a higher rate of home ownership than people who've been here 400 years. And if that doesn't tell you you've got a serious racial problem in society, I don't know what does, because there's no reason why other people haven't had the opportunities, and we need to address this. And so these are things that guide a lot of our policies. When we think about how we want to have an impact on the community, we've got to be conscious that everybody should be able to rise together. And the barriers to doing that still exist, whether it's outright racism, whether it's unconscious racism, whether it's the lack of capital so you can't start a business, or the lack of home ownership so you can't pass on wealth to another generation. There are a whole bunch of obstacles that are in place, and we have a responsibility to unwind those obstacles, at least as far as we can unwind them, and as many of them that we can unwind. And I've talked about this since I got elected. I worked on this when I was on the council, and I continue to believe this is the most important work that we're going to do, and I'm committed to doing this. Next. And then there's economic and community development. And I want to say that despite what people said during the terrible, nasty primary election, the truth is there's a lot of economic development going on in Montgomery County. We have record lab space being built. When I was first elected, I was in a meeting with Shear Partners, which does real estate for life sciences in the state of Maryland, and they were saying there's no lab space being built in Montgomery County, even though lab space was half the price of lab space in Boston. Today, we're in the midst of a 4 million square foot boom in lab space, which is a huge increase in lab space in Montgomery County. We have major biotech companies coming to Montgomery County now. And so we're seeing a surge in new companies. You'll see cranes in the Up County, you see cranes in Bethesda. Some of the cranes in Bethesda and in White Flint are actually going to be for biotech companies, not for residents, not for typical commercial offices, because there's not much market for offices. So we're seeing a real resurgence in life sciences. I just signed a memorandum of understanding with the University of Maryland. This spring, they will open the Institute, how do I get this name right now? Institute for Health, it's research, it's health computing. So I started working with the University of Maryland's AI department, which is in the math department, 3 years ago, about bringing to Montgomery County graduate level research to support life sciences. And we don't have any of that. We are number 4 in the country in terms of being a center of life sciences. we're number 4, but the only one not anchored by graduate level research. So I did a round of meetings with the university president, the chancellor, UMBC, UMB, and talked about bringing programs to Montgomery County. And after a lot of talking, they decided they would bring this institute here, and the dean from the AI school is really excited about this. Artificial intelligence is becoming a major factor in research in the health field now. And those of you who are as old as I am, remember everything was liquid, it was on a petri dish, and you looked at it on a slide. And good luck with slide magnification. Today, they can simulate molecules, they can simulate viruses, they can simulate the atoms that they're made up of, and they can recreate the shapes, and they do research on a computer. The dean of the University of Maryland Medical School, which is going to be part of this project in White Flint, said that this would make Montgomery County the Silicon Valley of health. And that's what we want to be, is the Silicon Valley of health. I'll take the health industry over defense industry anytime. And I think, the opportunity to make, game-changing breakthroughs in life sciences is here in Montgomery County. We're excited about it. And WMATA is going to take the White Flint station and hire a master developer, and the master developer is going to develop the property they own around the station in the life sciences field. So we're going to be bringing in more life sciences company. We're going to turn the White Flint, North Bethesda area into a center of life sciences that'll be well supported and help us build jobs in Montgomery County. And in the meantime, we're opening this fall, a new campus for Montgomery College. There'll be East County campus that'll be located near White Oak. That'll bring education to that, college education to that side of the county. High school kids will be able to partner with the college over there, the way high school kids in other parts of the county can partner on other Montgomery College campuses. I'm excited about that. And through all of this, we continue to help seed growth in Montgomery County. We've been very aggressive when companies want to come here, we've been very competitive in making sure we put out decent offers, and we've been able to continue to bring new companies into Montgomery County. So I'm excited about where we're going. And I think this is going to be a better place. We're going to have more job opportunities and better job opportunities. And I think you'll all be very happy with the direction the county's off in right now. So with that, I'll stop and take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Well, this is a hybrid presentation. We will be taking the questions of the live audience here at the Cofield Community Rec Center, as well as the questions of the live audience that is virtually participating. Very active over here already. So we'll start here. Jacob? Any questions from?
And check. Mic check. And we're live. Yes, we're going to come to the audience right here. I'm going to hold this mic so it doesn't go walking away. And if we can all remember to keep our questions to questions, being a bit brief.
Sure. Good evening, County Executive Elbridge and other Montgomery County staff and the Citizens Advisory Board. I'm Jason Najum, the new Managing Director of Imagination Stage. I don't think we've had a chance to meet formally. I've been in the job for about 8 months. And I'm here talking about the art sector in Montgomery County. We're so grateful for the support we have received, which has made it possible for our organization and other organizations to reopen our doors and actually expand our reach to communities throughout the region. The unprecedented disruption of daily life caused by COVID-19 has led to historic levels of learning loss, as you know so well, and has stretched mental health resources to their limits. As a result, our arts education offerings will continue to focus on strengthening engagements with academic topics to improve classroom outcomes and also focus on social emotional learning. I guess my question here is, first, thank you, and we hope that you continue to increase the budget allocation for the arts in the county to keep up with inflation. How might we balance this need with all the very important things that you talked about today about racial equity?
So balancing depends on how much I have to balance. So, we had a really good year last year with revenues, and I'd say signs are that we're not going to have a year like last year where we had really large growth. We could do record funding for all the social issues we wanted to record fund. But assuming it's healthy, I'm assuming we'll be able to continue funding and with, kind of normal increases to adjust for, increased cost of living in the county. Having an 8 or 9% inflation rate makes this really difficult. We'll see what the revenues come in like, but I am optimistic that we'll be in pretty good shape.
Thank you. We'll take a question from here from the chat, virtual participants. I read it as they come in. This is from Kathy Kelly. Could you pass a $1 million for life-affirming pregnancy aid bill since a $1 million for abortion bill passed in FY23? I testify against that bill as Director of Democrats for Life of Maryland.
I don't understand the question. Can I pass a what? The bill for?
Could you pass a $1 million bill for life-affirming pregnancy aid bill?
There doesn't seem to be any shortage of people going to get or access to life-affirming pregnancy help. There's a little shortage of people being able to get abortion help. We fund health clinics that provide support to people whether they're pregnant or not pregnant. So if a person's pregnant, they want to have the child, we have facilities to help them have that child. And if somebody is pregnant and does not want to have the child, we will assist that as well.
Questions from the live audience?
Thank you.
Hi, Mark. I know that you attended the Lantern Walk a couple weeks ago, and so I suspect that you saw the site where the new park will be right near there.
It's kind of dark.
So we've been working with the park design staff on the design of that park. They've been really great. One of the things we want to do in that area is have a memorial to the Talbot Avenue Bridge. The park staff seems to favor this, and they will eventually be putting together a team to do the history research in order to do that. As you also know, we've been thinking about having a Littonsville museum, history museum here in the center. It seems to me that if we could combine these two projects, that one staff member could probably do all the research for both the Talbot Avenue Bridge and the History Museum. So I am just asking you to keep that in mind when budget requests come for those projects.
I'll look at it when it comes. I mean, I think, recovering history is important and telling real history is important. But I haven't seen any proposal yet, so I don't know what to say to anything specific, but in general, yeah, I'd support that.
Wonderful. I'm coming over to our Citizens Advisory Board Chair for a question, and would just like to take the opportunity to recognize all Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board members who are here in the audience today. Could you raise your hand? Thank you for being here today.
As I said, no, okay, well, fine. As I said, the CAB most excited about budget meetings. It's here, right here in Silver Spring. I also feel like I would be remiss to start with, I don't know a single public servant serving Silver Spring who has a 40-hour-a-week job or even a 50-hour-a-week job. People are overworked, and I really, really like to see a little bit more staff investment in our area because people are going to burn out, and great leaders and great public servants will leave. I was super excited to see that you want to put more money into rental assistance and want to know how you're going to make sure that it is spent more effectively than what we saw during the pandemic when it took several years to get the program basically functional.
Well, it didn't take several years to get the program functional.
But I'd like to know what you're planning.
But it is the federal government has very tight guidelines. And our people were very protective of not letting the money out too easily because the federal government has also told us they would reclaim it if we give it to people who we shouldn't have given it to. And we will not have a recourse of going back to those people and saying we'd like the money back, because it will be gone. So we have, at different times we staffed up. We're still dealing with the limitations of the program. I'll say the worst limitation of the program is, given the federal money we had, the limit on who we served were people whose incomes were at 50% of area median income. So that's for you novices out there. It's like $50,000, a little bit more than that now. So a whole bunch of people who earn more than that, used to earn more than that, or were unemployed, were not as successful in getting money. And that's not a matter of people being slow in getting it out. It was not money to get out. And we're facing the same situation right now, unless the federal government decides they're going to provide additional rental support to people. We've used $88 million from the Fed so far. That opportunity will not continue. Our staffing issues are like everybody else's staffing issues. We have very high vacancy rates in the county. A lot of our older staff left, never to return, and other people decided they'd rather work remote and find jobs so they didn't have to go into work. We're hybrid, and some departments are more hybrid than other, but if you don't have to be there every day, there are a lot of people who aren't there every day. But it's still not helped us in terms of recruiting. And the libraries, I think, are finally down to 30 or 40 vacancies? You're getting there. But at one point, you were north of 100. And so we're all struggling with trying to get people hired and bringing them back on, which has increased everybody's workload. But we expect, police department's a good example. We gave raises to the police department to make them competitive. So our recruitment class this year went up to 30. The last 2 years have been like 11 and 13, really, really bad numbers. So where we have to make adjustments in pay, we're making adjustments in pay. We're flexible on hours, so we're not going to lose somebody, as long as they want to work here and they're willing to work with however we do hybrid in different departments. We'll do that. I expect that at some point people's ability to survive without working will run out, and they'll be back looking for work again. And we'll be hiring.
We'll take a couple of questions from the virtual audience, Mr. County Executive. Diana Jones says, the Hillendale Gateway Net Zero Affordable Housing Construction with Bus Rapid Transit is an awesome project, and I understand leveraged funding makes local government investment extremely cost effective. What are plans for more of that? And wouldn't it be great to push for a bigger investment in light of benefits of Inflation Reduction Act that will help greatly to leverage local investment?
We haven't seen money from the Inflation Reduction Act yet. We're waiting to see what this is going to look like. We will take advantage of as many things as we can take advantage of, particularly on the end of buses and transit, where we know there's an interest by the federal government in transportation. What was the affordable housing part of that question?
It was, what are plans for more of that? And wouldn't it be great to push for a bigger investment in light of the benefits that would greatly leverage local investment? It's about investments.
Yes. So, okay, I can't invest what I don't have. So, we increased our investment last year in affordable housing. We set a record. We did $149 million in affordable housing. We set up, part of that was a $49 million fund that didn't even exist before, as well as a large increase in what we normally do. Also, we put 18 of our parking lots up for sale. And we're not so much selling them as being willing just to lease them for 99 years to an affordable housing provider, because selling them would be kind of self-defeating. We get money, which would drive up the price of the project. The project would become more expensive. Then I'd have to increase the subsidy to the tenants to get into the project. So where we don't have debt on property, we can let it be used in long-term lease for somebody else who's willing to build affordable housing. On the developments that we do with affordable housing, they are pretty much all going to be in the range of going down to 30% of AMI and going up to 120% of AMI. We're not going to do pure market. There's too much of a gap in these other housing areas. So we'll use our 18 places for more affordable housing. We had, I think we had an amazing 130 people made proposals in the first round for these 18 properties. We've never seen that kind of interest in affordable housing in Montgomery County before. And right now, we made a group of 9 RFPs. They're out on the street now. We're writing the next 9 RFPs to get final proposals for these projects. So I'm excited about that, and we'll be doing more. We are closing, if we haven't closed already, on the deal up in Aspen Hill, Bushy Drive and Randolph Road, which is a very large project. It has ownership in it. It has all affordable housing in that project, and we were able to do that by taking advantage of our own money, but also some federal tax credits. We are pushing the state to increase the tax credits that are available, particularly the really valued 9% tax credits, which attract a lot of money into affordable housing projects. So this is what we're going to be prioritizing, building as much as we can build. And the other thing is to require more of it out of traditional developments. I mean, if I keep getting 15%, we're not solving anything.
Jacob, any questions in the back of the room? Because I do have a lot of questions here from the virtual audience.
Can we go one and one? We have one question here, and we'll head back over your way.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. County Executive, thank you for coming to Littonsville. Getting back to the local area, you're aware as much as anybody that there was a fire in a subsidized affordable housing apartment complex just across the street from here called Friendly Garden. That was months ago. As a result has been the loss of affordable housing, and that's happened in 2 other apartment complexes in the county for different reasons. What can we do to preserve and sustain the affordable housing we have now, in addition to the great ideas of building more affordable housing? If we don't sustain the bulk that we have now and they keep catching fire, what are we going to be doing? So I appreciate not if you'd put out the fires only, which the fire department does a great job of, but get the operators and owners of these affordable housing to rebuild and infill for affordable housing, not just tear them all to the ground and build upscale housing.
Well, I'm hoping Friendly doesn't get torn to the ground, but I know there have been 3 fires I can think of. One was near Flower Avenue. That building was replaced. It's been rebuilt. I understood that they were going to replace the units that got taken down over here. Well, nothing may have happened, but that means people didn't have money lying around to do right away. We'll see. My assumption is they're going to do that. That's what we understood. But that was a fire, let's be clear, that was caused because a maintenance person cut a gas line instead of a water line. And the last building we lost was because somebody committed suicide and in the process took down 12 units. Fortunately, nobody else died in this. But I'm going to assume, since those were condos, that they will be rebuilt because the owners would have insurance and the thing clearly wasn't demolished by any fault of their own. But in general, I support trying to build new housing. That's why we've opened up the parking lots. Right now it's a parking lot with nothing on it. So we're looking at building housing there. We had some empty lots that weren't concrete or asphalt up in the Wheaton area. We're building on them. I'm beginning to talk to people about building on top of our garages, because it is possible to add 4 or 5 stories of affordable housing to some of our garages in the county. And if you build on a garage in downtown Bethesda, nobody's going to care because everything around it is bigger than what you're building. So we're trying to be aggressive about this, limited only by, money. Everything we're talking about is things where there's no owner but us, or an owner that we can buy the property from. And
Lorna?
All right, we have several questions here. Mr. County Executive Chris Farrell, Kent Mill resident. The Justice and Advocacy Council thanks Council Executive Elrich for participating in the April Candidate Forum. The Justice and Advocacy Council co-sponsor along with Catholic Charities. Tonight, we're eager to hear how the FY 2024 operating budget will address the needs of the materially poor, vulnerable, and marginalized in our county.
so I haven't seen that budget yet, partly because these meetings are informing what's going to go in that budget, as well as the racial equity analysis that's being done by our racial equity office. So I will know better what's going to be in there specifically when I start seeing the recommendations come in. And as we know, we should know by the end of the month revenues. So by the end of the month, first week of December, we'll have a good idea of what our revenues are going to be, which is ultimately going to be the decider of what our budget's going to be. But, my targets are still the same things. I want more mental health workers. If it's up to me and if the budgets can support it, I want to create mental health clinics in Montgomery County. The county used to have multiple mental health clinics around the county. They don't have them anymore. I'd like to resurrect that program and put them back in place. I hope we can continue to expand early childhood support, because access to early childhood education is the key to getting people back to work, because if they don't have it, if parents don't have that, somebody's staying home and not working. And so that's a priority for both the kids who need to get early childhood education, also for parents who want to get back to work. So pretty much anything we've talked about, we are going to be looking at as we develop the budget. And if they have ideas, if you have a list of things you think are priorities, send them into our office.
Great. Here are a couple of questions from Dinah Brown. What is included in no departmental, and why is it so high in comparison to housing? That is one.
Wait, no, do one at a time. Why is what?
What is included in non-departmental, and why is it so high in comparison to housing?
You want to, or you need a microphone. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. What's included in the non-departmental accounts are things like compensation that goes with our collective bargaining agreements. There are other non-departmental accounts like what Mr. Elrich just mentioned, funding for early childhood education. There are a lot of there are funds in there for our other employee benefits, which is pretty hefty, and our other employee benefits are pretty much funded. They're well funded. So our employees are taken care of through those accounts. There are a lot of activities that occur that are not associated with a particular department, but they have to be funded. So we put them in non-departmental account types of activities, separate little pots, so that we can keep them separated for accounting purposes.
Also capital. And
that's that service.
And then interest?
Interest, yes.
Yes.
Yes, interest on our.
And interest is a lot.
A lot.
Because you built a lot.
Think of it as, mortgage on your home. That's what the interest and the debt service are paying for county facilities and buildings.
Thank you. Any questions over here? Live audience back there?
Through these chairs, coming on down.
Supposed to leap over the chairs as fast.
I'm Marilyn Schiff. I'm a member of the county library for appointing me. The new strategic plan is being fixed totally with what you've been advocating. It's all about equity and inclusion. It's about drawing people into the library who don't make use of it now. One of the libraries right near here is the Brigadier General Charles E. McGee Library. The libraries that's considered to not having enough of the local people using the library. And our strategic plan is to get those people in. We would like some assurance that you will help support this goal, which is the library's goal, but it's your goal too.
I will support it. Like anything we say when we're talking about money depends on the money being there. I mean, I don't have any problem supporting it, but at the end of the day, the extent we support things is dependent on revenues. Priorities are obviously going to be things that address equity or just to address absolute needs like road repair, bridge repair, and stuff like that. But you kind of have a hierarchy of things you try to spend on. But libraries and social services, are at the top of that list.
You have another question for the audience?
So you alluded to the need to change people's behavior to deal with climate change. And then one thing we could do is get them out of their cars. You talked about rapid transit buses. During the pandemic, the buses became free. So you must have some information now about what that would cost. Do you think it would be possible for us to start getting towards reduced cost free bus transport?
Look, I was happy to get it down to $1 a ride. We had an enormous amount of federal money that came in and supported our transportation budget. Without that federal money, we wouldn't have been able to make it free. We're talking, is Emma in here? Is it north of $20 million we got from the feds?
$100 million of relief that we got from the feds. Right on fare revenue before the fare reduction was somewhere around 25 million. I think this year we have programmed about 10 million for right on revenue. So for the county executive, it's a decision of how to replace that revenue.
So I got a list of things I'd like to be free.
All right, we'll take a couple more questions here from the virtual audience. John Silke, he says, in a recent meeting with Progress Place, I learned that many of the mental health deployment teams either are not responding rapidly enough or sometimes do not come. This leads to the desperate move to calling 911. What is the plan to increase the staffing for these teams?
The plan is to increase staffing for these teams. I will submit a budget that increases the number of teams, and I believe, and Jacob, what is the status with the DC group we were contracting with?
Pathways to Housing is hello.
So I'll say that again. So by early 2023, they expect to have more staff for positions. The Pathways to Housing, which is it a DC-based group? So we're going to be using a group that's had programming here, and we're increasing the contract.
Additionally, with mobile crisis teams, they're coming up to full staffing capacity. And so the implementation plan, always included a team dedicated for Silver Spring as well. And to a point that many of us know, the need has been overwhelming.
Here's another question. When might we see cranes in East County, an area of a 40-plus years history of economic development moratorium?
There are already cranes in East County. The Gateway development at New Hampshire Avenue and the Beltway is underway, and they're starting to build. I know they're starting with the apartments over there first. If you go to White Oak, and the White Oak Town Center project is underway. The walls of the grocery store are already up, but that's an entire shopping center that is totally underway. And in Burtonsville, the developer there is now going forward with the project. All three of those projects were stalled when I got in office. They were not going anywhere. All three of them are happening now. And so we've got an agreement with Burtonsville, and we have an agreement with a developer to build 2 apartment buildings on the county parking lot at Burtonsville and to get a new garage in there that'll have to serve both the retail but also serve the housing. I can't speak about what's happening in Viva White Oak because we have not seen a proposal from anybody. No developers come to the county or to the EDC saying we want help for a particular project. So we don't know when that's going to go. But Montgomery College will be in place by the fall in the East County. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the East County, and we intend to keep it happening over there.
Thank you.
So first I wanted to say thank you, but my question is, what is in the budget to the Purple Line corridors with all the small businesses in the Purple Line corridors? And the other one, the second one is, are we planning to have a mental health professional in the library setting instead of just the police?
In the libraries?
Someone that can.
I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Is that happening, Anita?
A social worker that libraries would fund, but would be hired and trained by HHS. It's very early days for that right now, but we are talking about it. Hi, Lenny.
And the first part of your question was
Is there funding in the budget or planning for funding in the budget towards the Purple Line corridor?
So that is totally a state-funded project other than what they stuck us with in the station in Bethesda, and then having to taking the trail out of their pocket and putting it in my pocket. So those are the things we're paying for. We provided some assistance. The state provided some assistance. Since this thing is going to drag on for 3 more years of disruption, it appears, I think we should be going back to the state and ask for continued assistance because they messed it up. So they should help businesses be able to adjust to it.
Hello. I live in the downtown Silver Spring area, and it's a great area. One of the things that I see is a lot of teenagers just like lingering around and just looking for something to do. And I know that, there are a lot of restaurants, but they don't always have money. So I wanted to know if there are any conversations around mentorship programs or development programs for these teenagers who, really some of them don't have strong family units. They don't come from solid households, and they're looking for community, and they don't have access to, community like we used to have. So that's one of my biggest concerns. Is there like a boys and girls club or something to develop these teens personally, not just professionally, but personally as well?
So we put more money into programming in the rec department. We're going to continue to do that. We had a conversation with a group of parents who are concerned basically about the issue you're raising with kids and what they are able to do and what's available. And we told them we would look at what we think we can stand up in terms of rec programs and other programs that would help them find someplace to do. I will say, I was a teenager once, and I spent every afternoon of the week and most of Saturday in Wheaton Plaza, walking around innocently enough, and sitting on the stoops outside the stores there and occasionally buying a soda at Murphy's. So it's not totally abnormal to have kids hanging out in retail areas because I was hardly alone, and that was a pretty normal thing for kids to go to the malls around Montgomery County and hang out. But more productive things might have been good. Might have turned out differently.
All right, we'll take a couple questions here from the virtual audience. This one comes from Tony Hausner. Police are not paid well compared to other counties in the state. In addition to more salary, how about helping pay for college loans and local housing?
I know we've got a program that helps officers with college. In fact, they have to have some college to even be hired in Montgomery County. But our officers used to be probably the worst paid around here. They're not the worst paid anymore. We're paid in the top tier rather than at the bottom tier. And we just negotiated this increase with the police last spring. And it was a very substantial increase in pay to get us there. My goal is not to have us fall behind and wind up looking up at everybody else, because just like we've been able to increase our recruit classes because we increased our pay, if we fall behind, recruits are going to go someplace else. And we're aware some of the other jurisdictions have programs, bonuses for signing and other things that we're going to be looking at to make sure we don't shrink our police force.
Here's another question from Kim Jones. Thank you, Executive Outreach, for your commitment to businesses owned by Black and other people that are underrepresented. Your investment has resulted in coaching and technical assistance by the Black Collective and exciting partnerships and outcomes. Will you continue to maintain the funding for this program so more businesses can benefit from our dedicated training?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we made this decision last year, and I took it seriously and put it in the budget this year. And it's not a one-year commitment. This problem is not going away in 1 year, and so we have to, I think, maintain an ongoing relationship and do the training and coaching, because a lot of folks don't have business experience. Don't come out of families where family members have had business experience running businesses. So there's a gap that we need to fill, and we'll keep filling it.
Thank you.
Anybody from the live
Can I
audience?
ask how many we have in the live audience? And we have one here, one over with Esther. Okay, wonderful.
So my question is in regards to our differently abled and our IDD residents. What currently is in the budget or will be in the budget to ensure that our differently abled residents are able to be in our community and participate in our community by either offering grants or just ways for them to, be a part of the community more?
So I have a differently abled son. So I'm dealing with this. I'm about to become self-directed, or he's about to become self-directed, if you know what that means. So, we've provided grants to the nonprofit providers that serve the disability community. We've always done that. We upped their increases last year. I am painfully aware of the pay issues with those providers, because they're barely above minimum wage. And if you have the choice between taking care of somebody who can be difficult, challenging, and of course charming, but then there's the difficult and challenging part, and working in Target for $17 an hour, a lot of people are choosing other things to do. It is sad that we're not able to pay sufficiently, particularly pay sufficiently to encourage people to get enough of an education so they actually are experienced in what they're doing. But, we will continue to fund, and if there are opportunities for more expansion, and if my rec director were here, we could talk about what they're doing or who they're coordinating with. But I'm happy to, if you have ideas, I'm happy to hear them. But I feel this personally. And so, and I've had my son since, 1972 or something like that. So it's a long commitment.
We have a related question here.
I want to thank my neighbor for bringing that up, because accessibility in this county is a big challenge, especially for people who don't live in somewhere as transit rich and job rich as Silver Spring. The question I wanted to ask was actually about long COVID. There's no longer a long COVID clinic in the DMV at all. George Washington closed theirs, and there are thousands of Montgomery County residents who now have it. Is that something that you are thinking about how to fund services for, especially given that there are no other support services locally?
I'll be honest, I don't know how comprehensively we can fund services when there's so little known about long COVID. I mean, I have symptoms of long COVID, so I'm well aware that this can be problematic. But we have a new health director, and one of the things that we've asked her to do is to focus on community health. Right now it's immersed inside the Department of HHS. This is too big to be something inside of something. So we're going to be coordinating and organizing more things around her and asking her to take on the issues of community health. We're also asking that we convene a group of both the hospitals and the nonprofit providers, because this is too big for any one of us to handle. And we know when the hospitals started dealing with COVID itself, let alone the after effects, they were a little surprised by who was coming into the hospital who they'd never seen before, and the advanced state in which some people had pre-existing conditions that were untreated. And, the takeaway from this is that we've got to do a better job of getting people involved in our clinics. We have a good, robust set of clinics. Not everybody takes advantage of them. And healthcare is not terribly expensive. There are some major holes in the program with benefit limits, particularly if you're in the retired group. And so those are things that, we need to be dealt with. But we need a better partnership between all the healthcare providers to look at this. And I can ask our new director about long COVID and what she sees as their possibility for working with either federal or state agencies. But this really needs to be taken on by the state or people with larger fund baskets than we do.
We'll take more questions here from the virtual audience. The Montgomery County Council is really punting on helping county meeting greenhouse gas reduction goals. Example, weakening and then not even willing to pass a weakened electrification bill. Can you overcome that on the executive side? And secondly, MCPS has extremely high operational expenses with respect to energy usage. What are you doing to help them meet the net zero sustainability goals?
So first of all, we're working with them on their transportation fleet, and they are, rapidly electrifying their bus fleet. And I actually brought them the concept of using this different way of financing projects using somebody who basically provides the loan but takes the tax credits. In the world of financing, government gets the tax credits are useless. If I buy an electric car, the tax credit's useless to me because I don't pay taxes, right? The government is not a tax-paying entity. So we use financing where the people who finance it can use the tax credits and the county gets the advantage of lower prices. We're looking at a similar thing for what you do with both solarizing and improving the energy efficiency of the power plants, or not the power plants, but the HVAC systems at the school systems around the county. So this is really important. We're trying to do the same thing with our own buildings. We're evaluating what we can do to upgrade our buildings and where we can put solar. The school system actually is letting us evaluate, or letting a company evaluate their properties for solar. So I'm encouraged that, the school system adopted the same goals that the county had. They had a debate on that earlier this year. It wasn't clear where that was going to go, but the school system actually agreed to adopt our goals. And I think, we've got a good working relationship with them now. They actually meet with us and we can talk about this. So I'm feeling pretty good that we'll be able to make progress with the school system. And I do hope the council passes the electrification bill.
Any more questions from the live audience? It is about 8:30 and we're scheduled to be here till now, but we do have several questions from the virtual audience. If we can get through a few of them, it'd be great. But first, the live audience here? No? Okay. So this is coming from Rosa Greenberg. Do you plan to continue funding free N95s, rapid tests, and PCRs in the FY24 budget? Thank you for currently providing these resources. They mean a lot to the low-income and uninsured community members so that they can access essential tools for health and well-being.
We will figure out how we provide essential things that people aren't able to afford. We're not going to let people go untested or unvaccinated because they don't have access to the funding to pay for it. So I'm sure the budget will reflect some of what we've been doing.
Brenna Olson from Shepherd's Table. There have been discussions of a restoration center, crisis beds, and community mental health clinics. What is the county's action plan, timeline, and budget going to look like to increase the quality and availability of behavioral health services to everyone, specifically for our neighbors experiencing homelessness?
So the Restoration Center isn't necessarily about homelessness. The Restoration Center is people, homeless or otherwise, who the police would otherwise encounter and take to jail. But if we determine, and that's why we will engage healthcare workers in this, if we determine this is something that could be handled without going to jail, then we intend to do that. The Restoration Center is a subject of debate. We have a site we'd like to use. There's a community that is objecting to us using that site. So we're trying to negotiate a way to use that, and if not that, we're going to have to refocus on a different site. And if we renovate a building, it's probably going to take 9 months to a year even to take a building and renovate it. It's not like there's a pre-made site that's ready to go that we can turn into a restoration center. So hopefully after we decide the site, we'll get one built as quickly as possible. We got the shelter done, and once they submitted it for approval, it was, maybe 6 or 7 months before it went from approval to an open shelter. And that was after gutting the entire building and then restoring it and then doing all of the interior work. So we're able to do this if we have to, but we've got to find a location that we can actually do it. And like I said, we're running into a little problem. Other than that, my goal is, as I said earlier, was to increase the amount of mental health teams we have and to be able to move to a clinic system in the county so people can visit a clinic on a walk-in basis and get the help they need, and parents can, bring their kids there and know that school is a dicey issue because kids don't want to be perceived in a school as going in search of mental health necessarily. So it would be helpful to us to have a place outside schools where kids can go.
There was a large amount of money that came into the county to support many during the pandemic, funding for county hubs and other services from these extra funding. Will money continue to support these needs?
I told people the hubs were permanent, and we're going to keep them permanent. And my goal is to provide a more synergistic or integrated interrelationship with HHS. But the nonprofits were very helpful to us in terms of getting, not just delivering services, but getting information out to the community. And they were more effective than the government alone doing this. So I'm committed to maintaining the hub model because I do think it makes better use of our resources and engages people who are really connected in the community in a really positive way. So I expect you'll continue to see funding for this.
Going back to the youth and community engagement, MCPS has been making progress on the bridge to wellness. We need to ensure that MCPS, DHHS, and MCPD better coordinate their efforts to maximize the investments in school and community mental health, public health, and school/community safety. Can you share an update on these efforts?
I haven't talked to the school system about where they are in this. I can find out where they are, but our goal, like I said, with the new health officer is to make sure we're integrating everybody into the process more than we've done so far. So if you want to follow up with me and I can try to get an answer, she can give you her email and question, and then we can give it to our staff and get an answer back.
We'll take, I guess, one last question from here. How about makerspace and lab in libraries or STEM and entrepreneurs? Again, we would entertain piloting this in East County.
So we have a location in the East County that we're looking at using for just that. We have to get an agreement with the people who are interested in providing the services there. but I hope we're able to do that, relatively soon so we can start work. The building's in good shape. It's fully operational right now. It's got lots of classroom space in it, so it's kind of well suited for taking advantage of the facility for things like maker spaces. There's talk about something related to food there, a food hub. So there are a couple of things we think we can do with the space, and it is being worked on actively.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. I think we have more questions here.
Not a question, just to add a little personal plug for the Silver Spring region. We also have the Silver Spring Innovation Center that through a new model is working with several community-based nonprofits and businesses that will also touch upon this maker and innovation realm. So here in Silver Spring, we're very excited about that.
Thank you. Mr. County Executive, any closing remarks?
I'll just thank everybody for tuning in tonight and listening, and hopefully you found it informative. And if you do have questions, you can write us. You can say you were listening to the forum and you either have a question you'd like answered or something you want more information on. So anyway, thank you all very much, and I'll be seeing you around. Some of you I know have gone to multiple meetings. We don't have any bar on that, so if anybody has another evening, I've got 5 more of these. So if you're sitting at home and you'd rather be out listening to discussions of the county budget, you're welcome to other meetings too. Thank you.
Change services with the department since January through June of this year. Now, how many people have responded out of the bulk that you sent to, and pretty much what have you been hearing? What is the feedback?
So the feedback has been very good. Actually, it's been very positive. We sent the survey out to 2,400 people, which doesn't sound like a lot of permitting for a department of our size, but some of those customers did multiple permits with us, right? So we filtered that out. We didn't want people to get, 20 surveys. So each person that received a permit received 1 survey. And the response rate was about 10%, which is pretty good. That's very good.
Ellos